Hello and welcome to the Magic of Podcast with Paul Rothman. And I have a very special guest as ever today, a good friend of mine. This person is a magician, a magic creator, an entrepreneur, businessman, family man, supports a terrible football team, but we'll get on to that. It's the wonderful Mr. Marvin Berglas.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, how
Great
you doing?
to be here.
Yeah.
Really good. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to have you here because in doing the podcast, one of the things that I'm really interested in is the sort of diversity of creativity. Not just in being a creative person and performer, which you are, but also business and entrepreneurialism and you know, you're a very positive person. That's one thing about you, which is great now. We need that.
Yeah.
So you know, how are things been business-wise and life-wise in this time?
Obviously, it's a crazy time, and I think the key here is that we all need to adapt, stay positive, stay focused, and things have to change, and you have to change accordingly. And for my business, which is a mixture of retail sales and through my products, we start. For those that don't know, we started running these demonstrations. Is how we started off in big stores with magic demonstrations, and we were in some of the best stores like Hamleys, how we started off, and then Harrods. Now we're in places like FAO Schwarz, and that's how it started like 33 years ago. But now we're all over the place, and our products are without demonstration. But the demonstration side is the bit that's been most affected because obviously there's not as many tourists, there's not as many people wanting to come out to big urban areas. So that, especially when the stores were closed, that's been, you know, really harsh, and they don't open till next week. So we've missed out on that. But having said that, again, your message about positivity, we've totally adapted, and we are having some record online sales and putting our energies in that, which is phenomenal. But there's a third sector that we've done as well, which is all about sort of trade. In other words, our products selling because of our brands well known now through places like supermarkets all around the world. So there's three sectors to our business. Before we had one, and now we have three. So when they all come back, I'll be very happy. Right.
Now, to expand on that, we're talking about Marvin's Magic, which is 33 years old. Very recently, a few days ago.
Yeah, Halloween was our birthday, that's right.
Halloween was your birthday, 33.
Yeah.
And Marvin's, so, I mean, you come from a background of magic. In fact, I was a demonstrator for Marvin's Magic when I was about 19, I think. In my slot was D.H. Evans, and then I got put in Hamleys once or twice. I think I had to dress up as a wizard once.
Really?
And yeah,
that's not normal. You know that must have been. You sure that was us?
Yeah, it was. I'm very sure. I think where else? I did Selfridges a few times.
Well, the fact that tells me a lot about you. You see, because the fact you were out in D.H. Evans was probably one of our C-list stores at the time. So you know, we started off there. See, and you managed to sneak your way into Selfridges. Okay, that's now we're talking about A's and B's, of course, and Hamleys at A. So you know, you've obviously progressed well. And listen, we know each other well from the magic circle, and obviously it's great to see and be a mate and talk about this.
Well, yeah. It was a sales job. I remember. In fact, I think it was Mark Paul who interviewed me back in the day, because I think I had to sell him a pen, or it was either a pen or a chair. That was how I got the gig. And
that's quite an easy one. You know, we're much tougher now. We get you talking about the inside of a ping pong ball and stuff like that. You see, the thing is with sales, it's all about personality and character, and you've only got a few moments, especially in a busy environment like a store, to capture people's attention. And obviously we were a magnet for young magicians. In fact, you mentioned Mark Paul. Mark Paul was one of our very first managers when we opened up Harrods after we did Hamleys in 1988. And he then progressed on to become our manager. And we've had, literally a who's who of British magic has come through our ranks. And it was, as you say, a magnet for all magicians, firstly in London and then in New York. But what's really great is even though many have gone on to fantastic things themselves, I could always tell the ones that worked really hard, who had something about them, would go on to be successful. And it's a very interesting dynamic, because as I said before, you've only got a few seconds to gather people's attention with all the distractions going on in a busy West End store. You have then to keep them there for a few seconds to do a good enough demonstration of pitch to engage them. And to me, I think it's like when you go and watch someone, let's say, tossing a pizza up in the air with their hands. You can't help but watch it. And the magic should be like that. You're just engaging, and people want to watch for those few seconds. And if you've got a nice personality and you're advising them rather than selling and putting the sales points in a positive but fun way, your applause is when people buy it. And that is like no different from going on stage and being a comedian, let's say, in a comedy club as an unknown. People make their mind up about you in the first few seconds. You've got to engage with them, hold them there for a while. And the laughs or the applause is, for us, the equivalent is when they actually trust you enough to buy something, which is just the greatest compliment.
It's a really useful thing, I think. And it's something that a lot of magicians actually lack. And we've talked about this before with some other guests. I was talking to Rob Zabrecki about worldliness and more experience that makes magic better and more interesting, and it comes down to that personality. And it's not about the trick. And once it's about personality, then the trick can shine. And something like demoing Marvin's magic doesn't really teach you about magic. It teaches you about selling, and it teaches you about engagement, and it teaches you about people and, discipline and a lot of other skills that are hugely useful, I think.
100%. And, I was alluding to that many of the past great demonstrators who've gone on to bigger and better things cite their time, they remember it fondly, they cite their time as a great way of learning audience management and people skills, because where better can you get paid to practice to actually engage in an ever-changing audience? It's a great discipline, and for everybody who watches for the first time, it's new. It's got to be as exciting. It's like when you go on stage as an actor, you can't just it might be you might have done the show hundreds of times, but it's the first time for the people watching it. So I think that's a really great point about the magicians and the personality, because we love magic and we're magicians ourselves, but we can still enjoy a magic trick when we know how it's done if the personality of the person is engaging and it's fun, as opposed to feeling uncomfortable, which is sometimes how you feel when someone doesn't really have a way about them, how they approach people, if they're doing close-up or if they're on stage, and how they repartee with the audience.
I mean, you've still got a passion for magic, and one thing about you, I know, like, you come to the Magic Circle and we'll be sitting there, and someone will show you a trick, and I've seen you do this a million times. Like, they'll show you a trick and you'll stop them. You go, "Can you do that again?" Can I?
Really?
You'll come out. Okay, can I film that? Actually, that's really good. I really like that. What is that? And
and it's not to put in one of our magic boxes. No, I promise you that. No. It's because I do love magic.
Yeah, you genuinely love magic. So for those who don't know, your father is a very famous magician, mind reader, David Berglas, and in fact, let me see here. There we go.
Oh wow. That is the Bible. He's showing the book there is at the Mind of Magic, David Berglas, and that is a tomb, a coffee table in itself, but it's actually really a fabulous book. Unfortunately, it's really hard to get them now. They're worth a fortune. It's really it's not just how tricks are done, it's more the thinking behind them. And the people who get the most out of it is reading between lines, just with his thinking and the preparation. And what he has taught me, Dad, by the way, is 95 this year, and he's incredible. And he's still got a very, very active mind. And but he, for those that don't know, he was the first guy on British TV to have his own series on commercial television. He's a former president of the Magic Circle, and he's the sort of the original international man of mystery. I'll tell you a story about that later on. But so obviously we're growing up in that famous magical family, and and it's only sort of later in life, the more I've mixed with magicians, I've realised what high esteem he has worldwide. I mean, that book, for example, we've been lucky enough to be in the company of David Blaine and Copperfield and Darren Brown and Dynamo, all the sort of well-known magicians. And people like David Blaine says that when I think he cites Dad as one of his absolute favourites, as do the other guys actually, and they say that his whole team needs to read that book before they work with him. So so his motto was nothing is impossible, and I think that's one thing that has rubbed off on me. I actually wasn't, truth be known, I wasn't that interested in magic as a kid. You tend to rebel against what your folks do and your parents do. My mum was an actress, very glamorous actress. She went to RADA and she was in films, and she was in the same sort of era as Joan Collins and Shirley Eaton and Sheila Hancock and all those type. And she's got some lovely pictures where she was one of the sort of pin-ups almost, with her. And so I've got to give her a shout out because she was very influential for us as well. But
what's her name? What's your mum's name?
She's called Ruth Berglas. So her actress name was Ruth Shield, her maiden name, and she pretty much stopped doing that when the family came. But she was good, and she was. She's got a scrapbook that would make us all proud. And occasionally films come up where we see her and stuff, and it's amazing. And she's vibrant, and Dad's obviously a fantastic mind and stuff. So I suppose it's hardly surprising that it has rubbed off in some way. But as a child, I wasn't really, interested in the same way because. I remember I used to get dragged to various shows where he was opening or giving prizes or something. And me and my brother, Pete, at the time, we weren't that interested. The magicians seemed a bit nerdy, and the youngsters who were our age were really into shuffling cards and stuff. I don't mean to be horrible because some of them. How are you, Paul? Yeah, you're growing up well, actually. No. In all seriousness, they it just didn't really do it for us. We were, but as I got, I think I was about 16 or so when I really started to get bitten by the bug. I was a last minute substitute for Dad. He was launching another book actually for magicians in a magic convention in Lyon, and he had some trick pack of cards that could spring and do all sorts of things. And the guy who was going with him to help sell them was fell ill with it. So a teacher came up to me at school and says, somebody's on the phone for you from home. And I thought something terrible had happened, but it was actually brilliant. I got pulled out of geography. I remember it well. And I was on a plane to Lyon that evening and helped my dad. And I think he was really impressed. Firstly, I'd never been to a real convention of that time, but he had a table right at the back selling, where they put him with his books and stuff. But I was a bit of a showman, an entrepreneur naturally, I suppose. So for some reason, when he came back, I'd moved that table right to the front in the most prominent position, with permission, I'd say. And I had a huge crowd around me springing these cards, and that's how I learned to flourish cards and do that sort of thing. And I got bitten by the bug. I bought a few bits and pieces and saw a few great magicians and hung out with people who are legends now when I think back, Hans Moretti, Harry Blackstone Jr. and Mark Wilson and stuff. And so I'm very lucky. Marvin Roy, who's my godfather, had a really, a lot of interesting things in magic. And from there really got bitten by the bug.
But I find that interesting. growing up, you're not into the things that your parents do generally, and I remember, when I was a kid, my mum was in the Young Variety Club, so I used to go to all the shows. So I was like a 3 or 4 year old watching her rehearsing in musicals. So it was kind of inevitable that I got into that, I think. But I remember my dad, who played for Spurs, actually.
No.
Yeah. 58 to 60.
Well, wow, what a time to... Did he play first team?
He was youth, and I think he played a couple of times in the first team.
How amazing is that?
Yeah, I found...
just to because everyone knows someone who had a trial, but to actually make it and go that high up, it's so competitive, and that's I love football, and I know how difficult that is. So that's amazing, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, but I remember when I was about 3 or 4 or 5, however young, being taken to football, and I'd go to White Hart Lane, and I remember not really being into it. It was all right. But then. Quite a few of our family used to go, and I was like, so. And then when we stopped going, all I wanted to do was go to the football. It's a bit like what you're saying with the Magic. When you started off, you're not into it, and then suddenly there's that thing, and you're like, no, I want to. So I'm interested. What to stand in for your dad, you had to know how to do magic, so you didn't just kind of go, oh, okay.
I had a quick lesson before it was actually something that needed a bit of skill, not a huge amount of skill, and it was very visual, and I just seemed to have a flair, and that's really, I just was just doing it with enthusiasm, and I think that's really helped me throughout anything I've done, because I've not been an expert at anything really. I didn't go to university or anything. Funny enough, I went into demonstration quite early on. And when I started out in business, I was always into art and that type of thing. I was always quite entrepreneurial, and I could, there's a few things that have happened to me which prove that point. But I think I've always learned as a magician, for example, seeing Dad or whatever, or just being aware the difference between a good and a bad salesman is how you hold something, where your audience is, the eye line, just how you hold it with elegance to give it value and making sure they're comfortable. And that just comes naturally, whereas you see some people and magicians, unfortunately, who are heavy-handed and don't know that type of panache. And I think those points of difference, which if they look natural, you don't want to say, look, there's nothing in my hand. But if you hold something in an elegant way, then they can see there's nothing in your hand, and it's sort of very clear, and they're not struggling to see. And you've got to be seen and heard. And I think it's the same in any type of sales. So I fell into sort of sales. I started off actually earlier than that, when I was... I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left school. I wanted to maybe be an entertainment agent or manager or hotelier. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I was always very self-confident of whatever I would do. And funny enough, talking about football, I always had a passion for the other side in North London, which is Arsenal Football Club, which I have very close links with. And we're not going to go there, because there's one thing we won't agree on this. But it's a rivalry which goes back 100 and something years, when Arsenal were in South London, apparently. Yeah, but we're North London rivals now, and I was Arsenal's magician for many, many years, and have very close links with the players and the directors through that. But my point was, I used to collect football programs, as kids do when you're younger, and used to go to these sort of fairs. To swap and sell and buy them and stuff, and they were so badly organised, like in a jumble sales in a village hall, that it was just really uncomfortable, and I just knew it could be done better. And so 6 weeks before leaving school, or after leaving school, and just before leaving school, I started to put on my own one event. And I did it in style. I hired the banqueting suites at Lord's Cricket Ground, which, for those that don't know, is the home of cricket in London. And they've got some sort of hospitality rooms, and I hired this out, and I sold space to dealers of started off with sporting memorabilia and programs, but then it went to stamps and coins and postcards and cigarette cards and ephemera, which is anything you throw away, you know, and it became a collector's convention, and that's what we called it. And I charged probably 20 pence, which is nothing in, you know, I mean, we're going back 1977 here. And I just got, through enthusiasm and nothing else, I had about 60 or 70 dealers. I had Phillips the auctioneers giving a free advice, Sotheby's. I had people putting on an exhibition, like a guy who had all the newspaper headlines and original newspapers, things like Titanic sinks, Nelson dead, all that stuff. He had put an exhibition up. I had, I think, Jeff Hurst football shirt there or something. You know, there's some really amazing things. And people swaps, selling, buying, exchanging. Got into about 40 publications, including most of the nationals. Went on Nationwide, which was the TV program of the magazine program, and Match of the Day, and quite a few things. And it just, you know, because I was an 18-year-old doing this, it was like that gave me the tag of the entrepreneur. And the Daily Mail said, with the seasoned panache of an entrepreneur. And that really stuck for me. And Marvin Sets Out to Collect $1 Million was page 3 of the Daily Mail. And then beneath it, Elvis's Will and Wall Street. So I kept those cuttings, and that really inspired me. And that taught me so much about publicity and reliability and you know, having a dream and trying to fulfill that, really. So that's then. But I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I did that a couple of times. And the third time I did it, I actually got sponsored by a national newspaper, the Sunday Mirror. It was called the National Collectors Exhibition. And a big exhibition company came in and sort of helped me to sort of make it a few steps bigger. But that taught me my first business lesson. I was very, not smug, but I was self-confident. And it was the 3rd of May, 1980 was my third one. And that was the exact, there was me going on TV, in fact, and all the magazine programs saying, come to Kensington. It was in Kensington Town Hall there in a big venue. And I said, come to Kensington, it's going to be great. We've got this, the other. And then on the same day, there was a bomb at the Iranian embassy with a big explosion. And the police were saying, whatever you do, keep out of the West End, keep out of Kensington. So I've got all these people coming down and stuff, and I had to deal with all that. And it was so don't count your chickens, you know, as they say, until they're hatched. And that was probably a good lesson for me, because it taught me, you know, you've got to have contingencies and you've got to be prepared to, you know, you don't spend it before you got it, all that type of stuff, you know.
So how did Marvin's Magic come to be? I mean, what was the seed there, and then what was the first thing that?
Basically, I was, as I said, I was one thing I was quite good at was art. I loved art and design, and a friend from school met someone's dad who knew someone who had some art materials that they were selling in Germany in an unusual way, and they wanted to bring it to the UK, and me and my friend, we partnered and we went to Berlin to meet this company. And just through enthusiasm, one of the products was this magic drawing board thing, which was so old by then that, you know, it was just an old product, been around for years and years, and it was probably, you know, they just thought nothing of it. But I was just so enthusiastic, and on my first appointment, pretty much got to see the buyers of Hamleys. I remember that. We used to sell that years ago. And they said, well, they put me right in the front of the store, again, like similar to the thing with Dad in his book. And just through sheer enthusiasm, I brought this thing to life, which is a drawing thing which comes out in color and no mess. And I was selling a lot. And I was just, you know, with no training, became the top sales guy in Hamleys at the time, and did that for, you know, a year. It was just, you know, this was a cold February, and there weren't that many people in the store, yet there was quite a few round. Everyone's complaining, you know, who worked there, it's not as busy as it was last year and all that. Yeah, I didn't know any difference. I was just going for it, and I had a crowd of people around me and was doing okay. And so I built up a reputation, and from that, one of the buyers, who a lovely lady, Alice Roach, she said she'd been there for years. And bear in mind, Hamleys is an organisation that's been around 230 odd years. Hamleys Brothers, it was the finest toy shop in the world, and it has a reputation for magic, actually, from many years ago. That it was the place for magic. And at that time, they had a very ailing magic department. Brought a lot of stuff in from the Far East, which wasn't selling, and they said, you know about magic. They obviously heard about my dad, knew about my dad. Where do you think we can get some magic? And to me, that was the light bulb moment, Paul, because I thought, hold a second. Well, I had built up enough trust and confidence with them that they allowed me to have 2 or 3 months to research it properly and come back to them with a proper plan. And I came back with sort of really nicely designed gift boxes with sort of red tissue to make it look nice with everything in there. I had 2 different sizes of boxes, and the tricks had to fit those boxes, otherwise it wouldn't be in the range, because we didn't want to, at that time it was a very cottage industry. And but we got 2 sets together, and within that Halloween we launched in 6 of the Hamleys stores in London's Regent Street, and in their regional stores in Bath and Sheffield and Romford and Croydon and Manchester, or whatever it was. I can't even remember now. And there was the birth of Marvin's Magic, and then we had talented demonstrators who we always would train to show it off in a nice way, and it just gathered momentum, and from there now we're in tens of thousands of stores around the world, which is brilliant.
I remember going to Hamleys as a kid, again with my dad, because I was into magic. Obviously, Paul Daniels was my influence when I was a kid, and he was on every week. And,
of course, yeah.
And we saw him at the Palladium. I think it was at the Palladium where he had residency. I remember going to that. Was it the Palladium or?
Was it Prince of Wales or something like that?
Yeah, it was somewhere in the West End. It was, and so I had my Paul Daniels magic set, and we used to go to Hamleys, and they used to have that horrible plastic. Well, I liked it.
Magic plastic, yeah.
You blew it up into little bubbles, balloons.
Yeah,
and they had a lot of Tenyo magic back then. So I'd squeeze play.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So what year would that have been?
Gosh, I would have been probably around 1980 to 82, something like that. Maybe around about that
we
time.
took over in 1987. And I worked there in the front of the store on the drawing board in 1979. So, Marvin's Magic wasn't our first business. I'd had 2 really successful businesses before that, and running simultaneously. I mean, the other art and craft products that we got from Germany, we actually ran an organization that went into primary schools, and we had some very innovative art and craft materials and design technology, and it progressed. And at one stage we had 70 sales guys going into ladies and guys going all up and down the country to individual schools, and that was a big business for us.
So what did you keep that going, or did you just diversify?
Yeah, well, my brother and my partner sort of looked after that. It was called First Class, and that was again the same ethos of entertaining demonstrations with quality products and bringing it to life, rather than just sending a catalogue or brochure. It was just, we made a whole song and dance of it, and it was really nice. And that went for many years until it changed direction into more publishing and that type of thing, yeah.
So with a business, you have to, I think the thing I've learned or seen and noticed is the ability to diversify, the ability to adapt, and the ability to change and not sit on your laurels when you're successful, because just as now, the shit hits the fan, and if you ain't ready for it, you're in trouble. Now nobody's ready for what's going on now, but except probably previous presidents were ready with the playbook, and the current one outgoing has got rid of it. But in terms the staple of Marvin's magic was what the dynamic coins, and Svendex, and that's what I remember selling. But I also remember when I would have been I think I was about 19, something like that. But you had your executive sets back then as well.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Paul, that was, rather than just selling individual tricks, we as we wanted to expand and go into, other markets and stuff like that, we had to put ranges together that would look nice and be not require demonstration, which wasn't always possible. And the Executive Magic collection was what I put together, a little briefcase with some of the best things in there, with beautiful flock fleece inside. And people still remember that today because, funny enough, it inspired, a generation of magicians. And I'm very proud of that, actually.
You had you had great tricks in that. I mean, I remember because we weren't allowed to sell that, like demo that, and occasionally we were allowed to open it up and play with it, and it was like they were the real magic stuff. That was like, wow. Yeah,
it was great, and we've got a sort of nod to that now because we brought back a limited edition 30th set, which was very much like that, actually, and with nice leather wallets and ways of making money, and it looks really nice. And in fact, we've just proud to say that we've just done a deal with that we're going to make, to help promote the Magic Circle as well. That we're going to put a version out for the Magic Circle Deluxe box. So,
is that aimed at the lay person to get into magic?
Yes, I think it is. Yes, it is. I mean, that's pretty much where we are in our set. That people who are hobbyists and getting into magic, it's a perfect start because we care immensely about the quality and the instructions and so it's a stepping stone that we're inspiring those and encouraging those magicians yourself when you were younger, and then that steps you on and you find, then you build from that, because you have to start with something. If your first experience on getting a magic set was disappointing, like for example, just a regular toy company from the Far East might have instructions that are badly translated from Chinese and the things don't work, and if that's your first experience on Christmas Day, getting a magic set, and then all the bits are all over the floor, and that's it. That's your end of magic. Whereas if you got something which was a quality item and you were able to get that amazement and sense of wonder from friends and family, it's now put your personality and your character up there, and you've gained some playground power or whatever it is, and that is the making of a lot of people. And then from that, you just have a thirst for magic which lasts forever. We try to help with that and go from magic made easy for the 6 to 8, 9-year-olds, then it progresses to the sort of ultimate magic, and then, as you say, into things like executive magic. But then after that, there's all different styles of magic, as you know, and people go in different directions and whatever. But it's a good starting point, and the innovation is very important to us, as you said about not keeping still. I mean, we're doing our trade launches now, and I'm really proud of what we've put out there and how we're going about it. And my team we care passionately about it. And technology, people can criticize certain technology, but it actually helps. We've now got inside each of our sets, there would be on the back of it, besides the booklet which you get, you can scan the QR code and download all the videos, change the language, and that's a supplementary thing. It also we have an app, Marvin's Magic app, where you have many different resources so that the box of tricks will work on its own. But for example, you can enhance it, let's say using things like augmented reality to make the things look really great and come to life even further. So we're always trying to push the bar. Traditional values, very much based on great family values and some of the history and heritage of magic, but trying to bring it up to date and look for ways of making it more enjoyable, easier, but effective and amazing.
You, there's a few things that brings up. I came and saw you a few years ago when you were demoing and presenting at the toy fair at where was that? Earl's Court, was that?
Olympia.
I think
Olympia, yeah.
And I think you were just bringing out the augmented reality stuff there, and you won Best Toy 3 years there. I think twice in a row.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was best electronic toy of the year. That's right. And we've actually picked up a few awards on that, which is really nice. Funny if that was something which did raise the bar and was very different. But it's one of those things. Looking back, it was so innovative that it captured the imagination of the buyers who we sold to, and it was successful. But it wasn't unbelievably successful as you'd expect. And why was that? It's because you have to try and communicate that to the end user. And that's difficult, on a shelf in a supermarket or something. So year 2 and 3, as the sales slightly declined, instead of fighting that, we now give that away as just extras to our magic set. So every magic set that we do has now got these additional features, and that's sort of how we're progressing, things like that. And it's interesting you mentioned about the trade fairs. When you're in this business of selling into retail stores, there is a sort of calendar of how it happens, and the calendar is that it tends to be a seasonal business that most people would receive a magic gift towards Christmas. Yes, there are sales all year round, but autumn, winter is the time. And so for you to get your stuff into the stores at that sort of time, you've got to be working, you've got to have it ready and developed in idea format the year before. So we're always working a year or so ahead, like fashion in a way. Mm-hmm. So you show it off at these trade fairs. It's a bit of a circus. You start off in London, and then you start off in Hong Kong, actually. We have a showroom in Hong Kong. And then where, believe it or not, some of the buyers from places go to meet our people from the UK, even though they're half an hour away up the road, they have to meet in Hong Kong. I can't work that one out, but that's what happened in previous years. And then we go to London, and then, and it's very expensive to have all these big fairs and hospitality and make it all look lovely for 2 or 3 days, and then it's dismantled. Then we go to big one in the biggest fair in Germany, in Nuremberg, and then on to New York, and then to Australia, and you're seeing all your customers and buyers, hopefully getting them to stop by and have presentations, and then they'd place their orders, hopefully, if you're lucky. And then you'd have a chance to manufacture it and then deliver it. So the manufacture is done in sort of June and delivery in August, September, ready for the shops. And that's sort of the cycle. But this year, obviously, very different. All those shows have been cancelled. And so, what to do? So we basically have, talking about adapting and trying to have foresight, we've built studios in our headquarters, really nice studios, actually. It's lovely because it looks good. And we have, all great vision mixers and cameras and overhead shots and different things and everything out there. And we're having quality time. We've done our previews with you get, instead of just a rush 10, 15, 20 minutes, we're getting good time and trying to make it, as magicians are now, like doing Zoom type shows, which is very difficult with interaction, but there are great things you can do. So the combination of the two, I've had a lot of experience of doing that over the last few weeks. Do you think
that's going to stay, or do you think we'll go back to the convention model?
It's just a personal opinion, but I think a lot of international travel won't happen as much. I think people, of course, there will always be conventions, there will always be international travel. People want to see each other, but likewise, when you analyze it, some of them, not everything is essential. And it does, if I've got a team of people going to Hong Kong, or a team, if we actually think about what we're trying to achieve, you could probably do a lot of it via. I think people are more adept now and more used to this type of communication. It's some people are pulling their hair out because it's so hot, they want to get out. Of course they do. But I think when lockdown's finished and when this is all over and we're back to normal, I think there'll be a mixture of things, and I think that will be. I'm sure things have changed. Many things have changed, and probably. I think there'll be a big bounce back for the entertainment business. I'm really confident of that. I think the entertainment industry and hospitality has been badly treated, and I'm really hoping and expect there to be a big bounce back, and people appreciate and know how much live entertainment is enjoyed. But I think people's habits are changing, and we're adapting.
I mean,
I remember, no, I was going to say about, when you think back even in our years, I mean, how we've seen, the communication is there's letter writing doesn't hardly happens now, does it? It's all email, text, message, whatever it is. It's getting quicker and quicker. I remember there used to be telegrams. Do you remember telegrams? I mean, that's just, you phone and dictate letter by letter, and then someone would come around a day or so later. Your house is on fire. It's a bit late then, isn't it?
Fax, telex.
Yeah, exactly.
All of that stuff.
Mad.
So
things do change, don't they?
Yeah, and it's always difficult. I suppose at a certain age, you're used to things, and you go, well, that's the way it is, and it's hard to adapt and change. And I think it's a good lesson for magicians, actually, is you have to adapt and change anyway, because there's as a performer, there's always that danger of, you're doing your 5 or 6 tricks, and you see magicians aging, doing the 5 or 6 tricks that they did when they were 20, and they're now 60. And the lines.
You're not talking about me, are you?
No,
do you know what?
You're always adapting, actually. So you're not that person.
But conversely, you could say learn a few tricks really well rather than lots badly, and that's a good thing to do. So, some people have made a career with just a handful of tricks, and they still do it brilliant. But I get what you're saying. I think, people things are changing, and the person who's got the fresh idea, people gravitate towards something which is new and innovative. And I think that's positive and that's life, isn't it? That's how it works.
Yeah, but if you do, I mean, I like learn 4 tricks really well and be amazing at them. But then what happens is they stale because you change, time changes.
Yeah,
it's kind of what happened to Paul Daniels. He became stale in terms of his, that it was the alternative comedy that came out, and he was very much of that 70s and 80s working men stuff.
I think you're harsh to say he became stale. I think people changed and they had choices, and it was the time, as you say, of alternative comedians and that type of thing, and so everything that was 80s was then out the window, and let's do something different, in the same way as reality TV was big now, or celebrity, this is big now, and everything does full circle. Those it'll probably come back to the shiny floor variety stuff again, so it's just cyclical, really, isn't it? It's just being in the right place at the right time. But
it's kind of reinventing what existed, and Paul Daniels became fashionable again as well. So fashions move. It's a bit like either you see it with pop music, like Culture Club or Duran Duran or all those bands. 20-year
anniversary, they'll sell out again.
Aren't they? Yeah, totally. And they become unfashionable for a minute, and then and then suddenly, do you remember it was like Fleetwood Mac, and there was that pop song, terrible song where they talked about Fleetwood Mac in the song, and it was just shit pop rubbish. And then people go back and go, no, that Fleetwood Mac stuff, that's killer. And then they become super fashionable again. Or there's that Instagram video of the guy on the skateboard drinking cranberry juice to the Fleetwood Mac song, and suddenly that goes to number 1, and all the kids hear it for the first time and they go, wow, that's insane, brilliant music. They didn't know it. And I think that happens with magic as well.
Yeah, I've got twin boys who are 20, and they keep me young, and they're into their music, and there's like samples, little things that we know, stuff that we knew. They're really surprised how I know that little thing inside there. But some of the artists today have changed it all around. I suppose it happens all the time. That's things keep moving.
But when you're performing a magic trick, and like I said, when you're 20 and it's a great trick, you have to reassess your performance every 5 years, or you have to look at it and shake it up.
Yeah. I think you have to be honest. You have to be honest with yourself, and it's very hard to do that. And it's good to have people around you who are honest and candid with you, because you're right. Unfortunately, there are whether they're hobbyist professionals, I don't know, a mixture of people. You do. It's the same. It's like having the same haircut at 20 as at 60. That doesn't look right either, and or trying to look young and stuff. Who can tell what's right or wrong in this day and age? But I think the person and the people who tend to be aware and know how they're perceived, I think, and what people are looking for. I think this is the question that this is just general common sense. I mean, in business wise, sales wise, that talking about publicity or selling to someone. People now get hundreds of emails a day. So how do you stand out from that? What are if you just to get people's attention? They've got so many influences around them, from advertising and TV, and people are now watching TV on their phone, on the computer. They're doing they're multitasking 3 or 4 things at once, because it's so fast paced compared to how it used to be. And we're a dinosaur. I'm a dinosaur according to my kids. I'm punching things I like to think I enjoy technology and all that sort of stuff, but things move quickly. But I think you need to adapt, and I think to gain people's attention and stuff, you have to think what are you trying to achieve, and then find, and that's what I've always done in business or life really, is find an interesting way to achieve that and to get people's attention, to make it easier for them. People want things to be easy for them.
One of the things that strikes me about Marvin's Magic, and always has actually, I think I had a Magic Circle Marvin's Magic set. I saw it in your pictures actually, and it was a big black and
red and green actually. Yeah,
was it red and green?
Yeah, there was a red one. It was the Magic Circle Deluxe box of tricks, and then it was the compendium of card tricks. Yeah, interesting. That was when the building, my dad was president at the time, and they were looking to raise funds for the building, for the headquarters, and I came up with the idea with the then president Michael Bailey, and I had to sort of put the idea forward, and we raised a lot of money for them. It was a very nice set indeed. Ironically,
hang on.
Oh yeah, that's a big. I can see that one now. It's a nice. Yeah,
that one. That was the. I had one of those sets.
That's the ones that Michael Jackson had when he came to London. I got a picture of him kissing that, which is really great. Yeah. But that raised a lot of money. But ironically, most of the money raised from that was because we'd sold it because it was a nice big box of tricks, not necessarily through the Magic Circle's name, where it wasn't known in the States and stuff like that as much. But it was certainly very innovative time. Talking about being innovative, I mean, there we go. That in those days, and things change now. Now you have to make packaging sustainable, and it has to be, people don't want vac trays and plastic and things to throw away. They want things to be sustainable, and that's a big thing for people. But in those days, it was a rigid box, so that was a lid and a base, and then I put this what's called expanded polystyrene inner to hold everything in place, and that's quite a big thing. So in those days we collated everything in the UK. We would buy things from all around the world, bring them into our premises in or warehouse, and collate and assemble them there. So in one set, it could have 30 components from 9 different factories, from 8 different countries, and it was a real logistical nightmare if one of them was late or different. So we had to get that all together. But what was interesting is talking about adapting or thinking on your feet. That sort of tray, if you like, which was a polystyrene type tray, had these cutouts. It was very expensive to actually get that molded and tooled up and that type of thing. And right at the last minute, I was thinking, well, I've got this thing here now. Hold on. If I turn it upside down, I've got a whole load of others. So I could get another one. So that's how the sister set, the Compendium of Card Tricks, came about. So we could just interlink, by turning it upside down, putting either one set of contents in one box tray or the other way. Does that make sense?
So what the molding on the other side created room for other things?
So because it filled the box, but if you turned it upside down, then you could put other components for another box.
Right.
So in other words, it was,
you didn't have to get it
exactly.
Exactly. Do you have to hold a lot of stock?
What do you call a lot of stock?
Well, when you're producing boxes, sets, do you have to order like mass and then store in order to, because it's about physical?
Well, okay. So, I mean, it's all relative, but we have 2 warehouses in the UK which are crammed full of magic. Okay. Crammed full. I mean, we're talking about tens of thousands of square feet. We've got premises in New Jersey, which is similarly for fulfillment in the US. We have factories in China that are making our products, and they are housing and storing our magic. But the biggest thing is that's actually a small part of what we do, because the main thing we do is where you can, you try and get what's known as FOB orders, which means that we work with, let's say we work with Argos, for example, who are doing a big television campaign at the moment. We would negotiate a deal with them whereby they would select certain products and they would give us a forecast of what they'd need, and we would manufacture it to order for them and give them a great price by getting it directly to them, so it never comes to us at all. So they have to commit to what they're getting for, but in order for them to even think about it, they've got to be really confident it's going to sell well and they can make a great margin out of it. And so you have to have the brand and the heritage and the sales history for them to even to think along those lines. So by doing that, though, you're making to order. But in the answer, do we have stocks? Yeah, we have huge stocks, and they would be for fulfillment of either individual orders or stuff that might need stickering or need different collating. But we try, where possible, to discourage that. But it's still not. There's always things where you need to have stock, and most retailers, want the ability to sort of stock up and see how it goes, and then order little and often, and they want you to take the risks. They want it to be your money you're using, not theirs. Yeah.
So there's a balance to be struck in that.
Yeah,
I guess.
there is, and it's a one that can make or break a company. You've really got to know your stuff, and obviously if it's the wrong stock or whatever, you might have high stocks of of the wrong items, and you might be out of stock of your best items. So it's a real logistical nightmare. Yeah.
Did you have items that you loved or that you thought were great, but they didn't go? They didn't work?
Yeah, quite a few. I mean, when we say didn't go, it's all relative again. Yeah. They by some standards they were brilliant, but for them to be evergreen products, we had some real favorites. Years ago, we worked with Ali Bongo, the late Ali Bongo, and the late Antonio, and unfortunately, and Mark Paul, who were young demonstrators with us at the time. And my dad came in, and we came up with this brilliant thing, which was I had this idea of a Marvin's Magic shop, which was a lovely cardboard engineered shop, which transformed into a production table and a shop, as I say. And what else did it have? It had Now You See It, Now You Don't boxing, and it had all sorts of things. It was beautifully drawn, and I really loved it, and I was proud of it. And it did sell well for a period of time, but then it was quite gifting, and so it probably needs to come back. It was so old, it's new. It's got its time again. But things like that. We also had things like Magic Man, our little character, the mini Marvin. His top hat was a ball and vase, and his hands were paddles, and all sorts of magic tricks and things that you could do with it. A great thing. And sometimes we came up with just really lovely design things that you would like personally, but that doesn't always mean that people would like them. And there used to be there was a retailer called Woolworths back in the day, for anyone who doesn't know, which was sort of that was the real culture shock, that I always did products by instinct, stuff that appealed to me, that I liked and whatever. But the buyer then said, no, we've got a customer, and she's what we call juggling Julie. She's got a kid on one hand and she's trying to pull her in there, and she wants to buy sweets and she needs to buy this, and they've only got £10, for birthday present, and £3 for this and that, and you've got to do it for that. We need to buy it for this, and it's just like, wow. And it just meant everything. So for a period of years after the initial creativity of Marvin's Magic, we felt sort of slightly dictated to, in order to grow the business, by these large organizations that were almost bullies, really, of how they bought and what they wanted and what they thought. And actually, it took some years to realize that that's not the way forward, because these guys, you were selling by fear. These guys were having to report to their bosses about what margin they're making, and they needed this and that. And we always seemed to be, they didn't care what was in the box. It was just, as long as it was £10 and it did this and that. Whereas we did care, and do you know what? And it took some years to realize that that's not the way forward, because there's always someone who's going to sell it cheaper and cheaper. So we've gone right back to our roots, and the last few years really have put a lot more love and passion, and we like to exceed our customers' expectations and put these little touches in there. And that is the difference, and that is why I think we're in all these places, because people recognize we have got a brand, we do care, and that ultimately that's quality and passion, I think is essential whatever you do in life.
I think that's the nub of it, and that I think that's really important, because people will tell you not to do things. People will tell you not to do things. That won't work. That's a silly idea. You should do it like this. You should do it like that. And I think there's people that you come across in life. There's people who you should listen to, whose advice you value and you will take on board. Doesn't mean you'll go that way, but you'll listen. And you have to have the faith in your own ability in what you do. I mean, it's like me, if I had listened to people, I wouldn't be in LA today. I wouldn't have performed at the Magic Castle. I wouldn't have made the little films that I've made. I wouldn't have met the people I've met, because someone said, well, I remember when I went to drama school, someone said, well, what if you don't get in? And I said, well, I'll re-audition. And they went, yeah, but what if you don't get in that time? I said, I'll re-audition. And they went, yeah, but there's a point, isn't there? And I went, no. And then, and then I got in and I did what I did, and, success is relative. There is no,
I think that defines you. The fact that you obviously had a passion to perform. You wanted to be in LA, and you're there. And it's so, as you say, it's a lot easier to not do something. It's like in a relationship or something like that. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people who are unhappily married. And it's probably sometimes harder to split up with someone. Because it's easy, because the friends, the family, and stuff like that, and it's just it's awkward. But you've got to be strong sometimes to move on or do anything in life. And by the way, I'm very happily married, so no, it's probably not a good example there. I've been married 27 years. Yeah. So basically, I think you're brave to do what you, and I think you need to. sometimes people tell you not to. It's an inspiration that you're going to prove them wrong. And if it's within you to do something, why not do it?
So, coming back to your dad and being inspired by him, and I mean, he did some of the stunts that he did, real and unreal, reported and not become. They become almost their mythology now in the magic community, and they're in that.
They're real. They are real.
They're in that book.
Yeah, they're not unreal. They're real. That's the difference. I mean, just let's talk about one or two things just so people understand. He's the sort of guy who, I mean, as a kid, I just remember one of the things he did, which was, it was when he was just going off to do a show. He was opening for the Rolling Stones. I mean, that's just like that's mad. Don't even think about it. But no, the stuff that you were talking about was things like, I mean, he did the blindfold cresta run in St. Moritz, which is this sort of bobsleigh type of thing, and he made the traffic stand still in Piccadilly Circus. He went in an aircraft and the mayor, this was for a stunt for the convention, and the mayor went up in the aircraft and drew a shape, and he did a big outside stunt where on his motorbike he made that shape in the sand on the beach in Southport, or I think it was. And there's many things. And I think to your point, his thinking very different to how people think now. He was thinking, what's the most unbelievable thing you could do, and having that self-confidence to think that's the way to do it. And then, right, how shall I do it? How do we do it? And we say it was just him. He didn't have a big team of people. It was him, and that's the difference. And so he has got a remarkable thing. And I think it's just a good time to mention, actually, he has obviously been in the business 70 years, performing in different guys and doing all sorts of things. And he's got so many stories and things, and it's just, he could write 10 books, and he's a real perfectionist how they're written and this, and so it's hard for to get that out of him. And so a few people have persuaded him to sort of really get some of this down, and what he's actually done, which is really great considering he's in his 90s, he's created some digital scrapbooks about some of these things. So they're little short movies that he's put together with Martin Hart, who's a producer on that, and they're really interesting. And each one of them is could be 10 to 15 minutes long or whatever, some a bit longer, about all different things in his life. And he's done about 25, 30 of them already. He could do 130. And it would still be going on and on. But along with those, plus a few of his friends and family have really persuaded him to put a sort of legacy type of website together with all his things. And we're hoping it's going to launch on and be available for everybody to see on the 13th of December. The 13th of December. 13th is a lucky day, number for him. And I'm also delighted to say on that day as well is why he chose that day is because Marvin's Magic are holding a big celebration online called Marvin's Magic Live. And that will be Sunday at 6 p.m., Sunday the 13th, 6 p.m., on YouTube and Facebook or on our website. And that's 1 p.m. in Eastern time and 10 a.m. Pacific time on Sunday the 13th. And that's going to have a whole load of things behind the scenes, look at how we do various things and meeting some of our past legend demonstrators and some people giving advice and interviews with some celebrities, and I'm actually going to interview Dad on that as well. So that will be good, and it'll be really worth a watch. Got quite a few faces popping in.
Is that a live thing?
Yeah, it's live. It's live. Yeah,
and will we be able to watch it retrospectively as well? Then
I think most of it, not all of it, because I think the program should got to work as a live, because we're actually, I don't know if you know, but we run the Marvin's Magic Academy in Sardinia, in Forte Village, which is a really beautiful, unbelievable resort. And Michael J. Fitch actually who's a mutual friend of ours. He runs the academy for us out there, and he'll be co-hosting, I think, with us. I've got them to donate for a family of 4 a prize to go there. So that's going to be one of our competition prizes, and we're going to give away lots of magic in there. But I think there's going to be a lot of good things. We're going to meet a lot of the winners and finalists from BGT. Debbie McKee's hopefully going to have a little chat with us. So, all in all, it's going to be good fun.
That's amazing. I mean, that's definitely. Give me the links. I'll put it on the information on this, Paul, as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've like you say, there's stories in that book, and there's a few YouTube vids of your dad talking about some of the stunts and effects that he's done, and just they beg a belief. And when as a magician, when sometimes how it was done, or it still beggars belief.
Yeah, I think it's ballsy. I think
ballsy is the word.
He's the biggest opportunist. I don't know how he doesn't. We perform, and there's different ways of performing it, but he honestly takes so many risks, and and that was his style, was it? And he's a real opportunist as well. There's one particular one about the Vanishing Piano, which is legend, and I think that's he actually explains that, which he does not normally do. Explains that, but when you hear sometimes the methodology behind and the thinking behind it is often as clever, if not cleverer, than the effect.
Did you go? Well, has he ever come to you to discuss an idea that he's conceived or putting together, or vice versa? Do you go to him to discuss an idea?
Very interesting. I think different times of our relationship, I have the utmost love and respect for my dad, and I think he does too. In fact, if you the way he finished that book was the best thing that he could have ever done for me. I'll tell you why in a second. But of course, I speak to him very regularly, and he is sharp as anything, and we do. Now we have that sort of relationship where we do talk about ideas, and I think he's quite, dare I say, dogmatic, or about his own views of what's right or wrong. But I think he does sort of listen to me about a few things now. I think I've earned that respect where he sort of does, but he might not tell me straight away. I'm always going to be the little boy, his little boy and stuff. So, but I think I've seen, and likewise, we are very different, but there's a passion, and we succeeded in 2 different ways of magic, if you like, so I have huge respect for him. I couldn't and wouldn't do a lot of what he does, because it would be incredibly stressful, and I wouldn't want to have the comparison. It's different things, and I don't think he could do a lot of things I'm doing, and so that's great. How he finished that book was brilliant, because it's a sort of unsaid thing, really, about a father and son relationship and respect and all that, and people tell me he's really proud of me, and I tell him all the time, I'm really proud of him. But probably if we were in a room together for too long, we drive each other mad, because I've got fixed ideas here, so we always end up probably in a row or something like that. But there's a mutual love and respect. But he finished that book by saying, after his all his huge career things, he says, so there was I in my, and probably the 80s, when he was in his 80s when he wrote that, walking in Regent's Park, and a couple of attractive girls, women came by and had a little look at me in a double take, and were sort of seemed to be whispering. And so I held my stomach in, and my chest out, and sort of thing. you've still got it, sort of thing. And was it because, perhaps they're going to come up for an autograph? Was it because I was the former president of the Magic Circle, or because I'd had TV careers throughout Europe or on series, or with King Rat of the Grand Order Water Rats, or etc. So, what are all his great achievements? And then a girl came up to him and said, "Are you really the father of Marvin Berglas?" And and that was brilliant. And he said that brought him right down to stuff, And so he put that as to finish his book. And to me, that's a beautiful legacy. Lovely thing to say.
Yeah, it's unfortunately it's a book that the general public won't read or see, because it's very, very niche and specific.
Yeah.
In fact, it was the first book that came with me here. Like, it had to be with me. I couldn't leave it in London. It just can't. It's a reference point.
It's a heavy thing. You probably have to pay overweight for it. It's a heavy.
Oh yeah, look. I mean, gradually I.
Did you bring all those books up? Did you bring them all out?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
The things that come with me on my travels, and my guitars, my computer, my magic books. That's about it, really. That's all I need.
For creative, exactly.
Yeah, that's all
Desert
I need.
Island. Yeah,
Desert Island. Stick me with all that stuff, I'll survive. Just one thing I'd like to kind of talk about is we touched on sort of like the new stuff, the modern era, changing, coming up with new ideas, etc., etc. And we have to adapt, and so the Zoom shows are happening. I mean, I don't think we'll move away from in-person, because magic is about in-person. Magic is about that experience that happens under your nose, on a stage, in front of you. Zoom is not that. I think they'll it will probably be used, and it's a facility, and I think it will work in tandem. But it's never going to be as it's like sitting in a bar having a drink together, or making a deal over a drink. You can't negate that.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, there's stuff now online with the Instagram magicians and the online stuff, which is super popular. Gets billion hits. But, to my mind, there's so much fraud involved. Now, it's a difficult thing with magic, because we are liars and cheats, and we are fraudulent. We are doing what we're, or saying what we're doing is not what we're doing. I mean, how do you find that adapt? And also, some of it we kind of grow into, and you go, okay, yeah, no, I appreciate that. And it's a developing market as well. It's a developing thing, and it will change and change and change. I mean, how do you see that world?
It's a strange world, because we, as purists of loving magic, we would go anywhere to watch some great magician, and if he's got a great personality and skills, sleight of hand and persona and stage presence or whatever, that's the whole package. That's the ultimate. And it just seems a shame that someone can have immense popularity based on 5 or 6 seconds of a almost packet bought trick type of thing. And I think really, it's a shame, because we know, and therefore if someone says, we can't, it shouldn't be a spoil sport, say, yeah, but it's very tempting to sort of put it down. But really, I suppose, to promote the art, it is magic. You've got to applaud it's obviously popular, because if there are millions of viewers and hits on Instagram, TikTok, or whatever the thing is, it's because it's this fast changing world. We were talking about people want eye candy. They need a bit of eye candy very quickly. And what's a shame is when we know the originators of some of these effects, who perhaps did make a living from it and who had done some brilliant stuff, and then someone, from your bedroom almost, could just record it on a something and create something that goes viral. I mean, if it's done well and if it's got something about it, of course that's fantastic. It's just when it's done badly, it hurts really, on a personal viewpoint, because it seems to be the lowest form of but what can you say? I mean, the social media and influence and people who've got all these things, it surprises us, but that's the way it's going. But it's probably the difference between a singer-songwriter and someone doing karaoke. Someone who has been able to write the lyrics, get the tune, and really put it across in a beautiful way, is someone who's talented and or they've got the right person to sing the right song. But you can just go to a karaoke machine and sing that same song. It doesn't make you the best singer-songwriter. And in a way, it's probably that way. I don't mind if it's done well. I like anything done well. But as you say, the pretense and the overacting and the reactions and stuff like that, you see through it, and that can't be good for our industry.
Well, when you saw back in the day when Blaine came out, he changed everything in a positive way, like an amazing.
All about reactions, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And even if it was edited brilliantly to help those reactions, they were true reactions, and you could see the difference, and it was embellished in some ways, but just generally, it was great. It really was eye-opening. It was a change of landscape. And it was, Paul, did you go to his show when he came to London?
Yeah.
It was a phenomenal. I was really
so
blown
lucky.
away because, I wasn't sure that he had that personality or persona to really come across well on stage, but he held a very captive London audience, I was spellbinding. It was a privilege to be there that day, wasn't it?
It was an unbelievable. It was a last minute thing. I think Lewis Fuller said to me, "Get tickets." Oh, Paul, there's tickets available. Get a ticket. Come on. And I came down and we went, and everyone was there, and we were all in the drinks afterwards and had a picture with him.
Yeah, he came out, didn't he?
Yeah, and it was absolutely spellbinding, and it took me back to that time when his special came out, because I think he there was all the stunts bit in between that were okay, but they became a bit more about that. I mean, I loved Ascension. I thought that was absolutely fantastic, which was, people who don't know, he had this idea of floating up holding balloons. Did you see Ascension?
Yeah, it was amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah. But the show, actually, what was amazing, and Assi Wind was on the show, who's one of my favourite creators.
Assi was brilliant, wasn't he?
Brilliant.
As well. I mean, to me, that was like witnessing probably what Houdini was like at the time. It felt like it was great to be there.
But he understood theatre. So it was so beautifully, there was a huge understanding. It was experience, having done it for so long. It was beautifully directed. And it was very, very intimate, and it was kind of like a black box kind of theatre. It wasn't overblown. There was nothing big arriving on stage. It really, what I love about Real or Magic is the way that he mixes the real stuff with the magic, and we know what he's doing, but he has this little spin on it, and you go, holy moly! I'd do the first bit, but I wouldn't do the second bit because that's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, he's an inspiration, and that's what I'm talking about. We love people who are thinking and are creative and put their heart and soul into something like that. It's a pleasure to watch them. That's what keeps it fresh, And I think as magicians, we've got to always try and give that sense of wonder and do the best you can. It's not just a quick throwaway. It's worth putting the effort in, the practice, the thought, and the technique to get it perfect.
And I think, and bringing in, and Blaine does that, and Darren does that. Darren does that beautifully. I mean, wonderful painter, wonderful writer. He's inspired and influenced by all the other arts, and this is something we come full. Oh, you've cameras.
Yeah.
Oh, there you're back there.
Low battery.
All right, we're nearly there. But that thing on. creativity, bringing in all these other mediums, be it music, art, that's what makes you stand out from the rest, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, listen, on that bombshell, as the battery is running out, I think it's telling us something. But, thanks for coming on board. And
it's a great pleasure. It was great to catch up with you. And it's lovely to see you. And it was a great chat. I enjoyed it.
Great. We'll put up, give me the links for the stuff that you've got coming up as well.
Yeah,
and we'll
Marvin's Magic Live.
Marvin's Magic Live. So, if you're listening to this at the time, great. If you listen to it and it's gone, there'll be stuff to look back on. And I hope that, our conversation, clicks with a few people and, hopefully inspires them to go out and perform or, take it on board and be creative in whatever you do.
And positive, yeah.
And positive. That's brilliant. Thanks very much, Marvin. We'll end it there.
Thank you, Paul.